I am back. After a little holiday, I spent a couple weeks just assembling this car. Didn't turn the camera on, so I'm going to give you guys an update on all the progress that was made on this car. It does drive. I got to drive it, so I'm really excited. But I didn't take it to the West Coast holiday, which was the goal. I got really close, and I'm going to tell you, what was the showstopper. It was something I didn't expect.
Garage time.
I didn't get any work done on the car this week. I'm still pretty exhausted and trying to catch up on other stuff from the weeks prior. But here's the car. It was ready to go to the event. I was gonna go the day before the event. I was still scrambling on putting it together. Basically, I had the side windows and the door frames to put in, and that was kind of it. That was about 8 o'clock the night before, and I was still considering taking the car. It's still pretty dirty. I got my fingerprints all over it. I haven't had time to clean it. I was literally gonna clean it at the show, but the car is looking good, you guys. Let me show you around. I spent most of my time underneath. I haven't done much to this engine. This engine's been in storage for a while. It's kind of clean, but not to the same level as the rest of the car. Everything has been completely either replated or refurbished or repainted or something. Like this, for instance, is a German Kamax bolt 8G. All these are like replated 14 millimeter across the flats. Some of the heater linkages are missing, and I got some of the wrong clamps on certain pieces, like that elbow right there. Missing the elbow on this side, so I couldn't put that together. Don't really need a heater right now anyways. These shocks will get replaced with conies once they come in, but the calipers and all these bolts are looking good. I made these brake lines. They have a sleeve over them. It's really just plastic tubing, which I sourced from McMaster Car. And so that's good. All new brake lines here. This is a temporary fuel filter. I just want to be able to see what's coming through the tank because it's been sitting so long. I think I can already see some stuff collecting there in the bottom. So I'm going to swap that out very quickly once I get a few runs in with it. But yeah, all new brake lines, sound insulation up there. Some things still need to be painted. These are just original paint, haven't been painted. Something like this has been painted. But it's pretty clean. I did install a hard start relay for the starter. The starter has not been rebuilt. It's gone back to 6 volts. This has been punished quite a bit with 12 volts, so it works, but it needs to be rebuilt. The hard start relay is part of like the factory harness. It tucks in right here. I just put it under the same sleeving that you have the harness in normally, so it kind of looks like it's factory, but it's tucked out of the way. That's a 6-volt relay, puts direct power right to the solenoid. I think it helps a little bit on the ignition switch. Some people put this under the dash, but I elected to keep it here under the car, sort of more hidden. Some of the wiring changes there. There's a ground that goes right here to this clamp. I'll change that bolt eventually. The ground strap is original, probably needs to be tidied up a little bit, but the e-brake cables are not in. I have e-brake cables. It goes through this loop right here and into the hole back here behind the shock. I just haven't put all the emergency brake hardware in the hubs, so I'll do that at a later date when I have a little bit more time. You can see the difference between some like newly plated hardware. This is original, but this is not plated, and you can see how the finish just wears over time. There's really hardly any plating left on this. It's just been cleaned. But that's something that will be done on the next batch. This is one of the plugs for the spring detent 3-4. There's a problem with this one. I'll explain in the transmission video, so that needs to come back out. Some of this will get plated next time, new hardware, take the tape out, connect the heater boxes with the linkage, that goes to right here. See how that flapper works? But this is, like I'd say, probably 95% ready. Solid axle boots, no leaks so far. And this hole here is for the tachometer, which I haven't installed yet. I think this engine's set up for a electrical tach, so probably just put the old cable in just to fill the hole. I hope to do a whole series as this car gets more and more correct as to what the finishes are, what the orientations are, what's correct versus the clamps and so forth. I know there's a lot of things that here aren't perfectly correct, but if you see something, let me know about it and I'll continue to upgrade the car, make it as correct as possible. That's my goal with this car, is to make it correct, probably compete in one concours, and then just continue to drive it and try to maintain it as best I can. So the Karmann built cars have these little drain holes in the pan. They also continue here in the longitudinals, so these are all been recreated by me. Even these plugs here are factory for Karmann built cars, something that I spent extra time on doing. Also, the depressions in the floor have been modified to look exactly like the originals. Some stuff here is not plated like these bolts, but I got conies here in the front. Calipers completely rebuilt by me. Some of this hardware is placeholder hardware as the actual hardware gets plated. I have all the original stuff. All new brake lines here in the front. So new steering stabilizer, plated hardware everywhere. The master cylinder was rebuilt by me. I haven't put a lot of the cotter pins in yet. I plan to go around the block a few times, retorque everything, and then put the cotter pins in. So we'll do that soon. New fuel lines up there, rebuilt fuel cock, new grease fittings, rebuilt steering box, new hose for the master cylinder. So even though I was rushing to finish this car, I didn't really cut too many corners. Some of the hardware is placeholders while things get replated, but I did fully grease the suspension and check it again for correct link pin adjustments. Everything's working really nice. A lot of cars have problems here with the way this pedal bracket mates up with the circle in the depression of the floor. So when this was in metal, I did a lot of effort to make all this stuff line up so it doesn't look like it's been altered. My goal with this car was to make it look factory correct, even though it's been fully restored. All this metal has been replaced. Missing bolts there on the sway bar clamp. I'm fearful of plating everything at once because I just lose track of stuff and I want to keep the plater honest, so I try to just give them a little bit at a time. Special thanks to Corey. He let me borrow one of these banjo bolts, so that's already been plated and reinstalled. He helped me out. I couldn't find my third one or fourth one. New grease fittings on there. Everything's been cleared out and flushed out, so everything, pumps up correctly. Got grease to squirt out of all the normal places in the link pin area, so it's fully ready. There's no play in the wheel at all. You can wiggle it as much as you want. It feels really solid, so. Really happy with this, you guys. Spent a lot of time on this. Probably won't show unless you're under the car, but to me, I wanted to make this car as correct as possible. I don't think these screw clamps are original, so I'm looking for the clamps the factory used. If you have any idea on that, let me know. And some of this stuff is reproduction, like all this rubber has been reproduced, and like this should slide over. This should go over like that. Hopefully that stays on there like that. But this is reproduction. Everything else, you guys, is original. Some of the rubber I just cleaned up, like this bumper stop. That's just coated in silicone oil and just cleaned off. I'm in the process of switching out some of the bolts right now, so that's why this is missing a nut. So I just got to take the weight off the engine so I can kind of push that out without damaging the threads. All the wiring is run. You can see it comes around there. It's in those little clips, got it all secure. Comes through the frame right here. I'm not sure if it's supposed to have a grommet right there or not. And I got to take some tape off these brackets, but the taillights are wired. Little boots keep falling off, but I'll figure that out. And tailpipes are just kind of there for now to keep the paint from getting all black. It's missing the rear tin. I'll explain that in a minute. Here's the inner fender well. Coney shocks up here on the top. This lock plate here, I haven't folded the tabs over because I'm going to replate that bolt again, and also just want to drive it a few miles, make sure everything is comfortable, retorque all the bolts, and then I'll fold those tabs over. Those are the safety devices. Still got the horn to install, front bumper to install. stuff like that. This is the safety release to get the trunk open in case I can't open it with the pull lever from inside. The engine bay isn't too particularly exciting. This is basically driver quality, and this is not the original engine. This is something I rebuilt this myself probably 20 years ago, and it's still in good condition. Doesn't have a lot of miles on it because of all the restoration work I've done to the body. But this is a 912 engine. One of the clear ways to tell is the bolts here that attach the third piece they're like special nuts. This is normally where the rear crossmember support attaches for the 912. So I have several of these engines. This is the probably best 912 engine I have. And it runs great. I've got it tuned up. I will show you a video of how I set up the Solex carburetors in a different video. I have it on the test stand, and I go through the whole procedure of doing the idle mixtures and stuff. So that'll be a future video. I have the original numbers matching engine in my garage, and that needs a complete rebuild. Still have to put in that sound insulation on that side. I finished this side. It's looking great. It's getting a little dusty down there. Got to clean it up. I did switch out the generator. My car, when I bought it, was a 12-volt conversion. It was sort of half done. Some stuff worked, some stuff didn't work. So I've gone and changed everything back to 6 volts, the 6-volt coil, 6-volt generator now, and I have got the charging system to work. So the 6-volt generator, 6-volt regulator, all that is functioning, which is good news, and that was a big hurdle to overcome last week too. Also completely went through the fuel pump and adjusted the fuel pressure with some gaskets and stuff. This distributor has been rebuilt by Glenn Ring. He did a good job on that. The rear engine tin is not there. That is because I got to pull the engine out again. I'll explain in a second. Let me show you guys inside here. I just put in the rubber mats, and some of the gauges, well actually all the gauges are in, all the switches are in. Not everything is wired, not everything is working. Like I said, I had a 6-volt conversion going on at the same time, so some of the gauges need to be taken apart and converted back to 6 volts. But I was able to get some of the warning lights on, and that's what I was willing to drive it with. Everything here is, pretty good. Some stuff I ran out of time. I didn't get this painted. I just wanted to make sure that the transmission was okay, which thank God it is. It does drive actually great. I didn't have any problems with the transmission. Took me a little while to get the linkage adjusted. Still got to put this coupler back on, but Corey also let me borrow this clamp. That's something I was missing. But I got the linkage adjusted. I got the clutch adjusted. The pedals adjusted, everything bled. While I'm here, I want to show you this cool feature. This is a secret compartment. Look at all that extra space in there. 911s have smuggler's boxes, and this is my version of the smuggler's box. This is a piece that I make myself. If you're interested, send me a note, or I'll put a link in the description below. But these are my own pedal boards. I make the left side, which is the stock pedal board, and the right side has this extra little door hatch in it. You can put obviously whatever you want in there, but knowing me, will put like spare parts, fuel pump, generator, fan belt, a couple tools, whatever you might need on the road. The back is still just bare metal, kind of dusty. Haven't cleaned anything up yet. Some of the sound insulation hasn't been glued in, but I got a lot more sound insulation to go in. This is because I don't have the seals in. This is just preventing the paint from getting scratched as I close the door. So I have the seals. That was part of the plan, just to kind of glue those in, or at least take a section of seals and just put it here so the door would at least not slam into itself. I put the glass in, even though the headliner's not in. This is not going to be the final time I'm putting the glass in, but I went ahead and put it in. I did install the new rubber seal. This is the old trim. This trim needs to be either replaced or restored. But just to make it to the show and sort of do a trial fit, I did get both the front and rear windows in. I will do a separate video on this next time because it is a big chore to get this trim in the seal and get the seal on the body and on the glass so it all fits really nice around the edges, and there's no gaps. So it went in pretty well. Definitely had some help from Zach. And then just to get me going, I only did the wiring. It's still a mess, but I only did the wiring I needed to operate the car. There's not much needed to actually make the engine run. There's only one fuse in the whole thing, and that's for the brake lights. That is a 6-volt battery. That's new. Some of the extra pieces that are going to be installed are still kind of just idle laying down here. Got all the front suspension pieces tightened, the coupler. That's a new brake fluid reservoir. I have the original one, haven't restored it yet. Tank is clamped down. Everything is really pretty close. Another problem is this thing was running great on the test stand, and then when I put it in the car, it wouldn't start, and I realized that there's a problem with the ignition switch. The ignition switch was fine 15 years ago, but it's been sitting on a shelf, and it doesn't power the coil when it's in the start position. In the run position, it's fine, but in the start position, it will not power the coil. So I have to use this jumper to get it started, and that's what this is for right here. So now the coil will get power when I'm cranking it. It'll start up. So I didn't take any driving footage, but I did take it around the block a couple times, one without any of the windows in, and then I went for some higher speed runs with the windows in, and I could feel like a vibration like around 3,000, and that's something I never felt before. I don't know if it's because I have the new motor mounts or there's no interior in it, but it felt like a pretty bad vibration coming from the engine. It wasn't happening when I put it in neutral. It was only happening when the engine was like 3,000, happening on acceleration and deceleration. So something's out of balance, and it's either the fan, which I did replace the generator, so I don't think the fan was put on wrong, but that could be out of balance. The pulley has been like replated, but most likely it has to do with the pressure plate and the flywheel. So the engine's been out of the car for like more than 15 years. And in that downtime, I used that engine or this engine to develop my engine test stand kit. And in doing so, I do think I took the pressure plate off. And my concern is I didn't put it back on correctly, or I forgot to put a bolt in, or I just got the orientation wrong. It's been balanced before, but that's why I got to take the engine out again. Gonna have it rebalanced and check everything. The car probably, I mean, fingers crossed, it might have made it to the West Coast holiday, but with that kind of vibration, it could be really damaging to the engine, it could damage everything. So the decision was at the last minute to pull the cord. Definitely didn't have time to rebalance the pressure plate and take the engine back out. Also, I couldn't get the brake lights to turn on. There's some connection under the dash that I just ran out of time. I mean, I'm about a week behind where I needed to be to really get some test drive time, put some miles on it, get the seals in it, make it a little bit more comfortable. So I'm still happy. Like, I was able to drive it. I had a great time at the West Coast holiday. I'm not concerned about the engine. I know it's something simple. I just need to take it out again, investigate all the things and balance the fan, balance everything, put it back together, and I should be good to go for a while. Driving this car is exactly how I remembered it. It's a 356. It drives really well. The steering is so light and soft. The ride is great. The sounds are great. It's just kind of exactly like I remembered. It just looks better now. Thank you for being patient with me and following me through this. I did take video of the transmission final assembly and the ring and pinion setup, all that stuff. I think is super interesting. A lot of you guys checked out on the whole transmission build, but I'm gonna do probably 2 more videos on the transmission assembly. Definitely don't have to watch them. It's not for everybody, but I actually enjoyed it. And then I have another video that has to do with setting up these Solex carburetors and checking the fuel pressure and all the engine related stuff, basically a tune-up, how to get this thing working again after it's been sitting so long. It does smoke a little bit because I had sprayed it with fogging oil when it was in storage for like 15 years, but I did do a leak down test on it. It's still very, very good. So engine's good, happy about the engine, just need to get that vibration fixed, guys, and we're headed down the road. Thank you for being here. Cheers.